Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are back here at the Six Rings Kane Show. As you can see, it's a full house today. We finally got the band back together once again as we get closer and closer to opening day, whatever, first game of the season as September 4th. So
Not
really
baseball.
excited. It's whatever. Opening day is opening day. Opening day. Opening game. See, week one. Week one. All right, of college football as we get closer, as I said, September 4th against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Joined by Danny Gillette, who is producing today. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The Ghost from Christmas Past, Paul Austria. The Ghost from
Oregon boy.
Christmas Future, Vish. And just the ghost who disappears every once in a while, Jock Givens. What's going on, everybody? Thanks you guys for joining us. Really excited to have you all on the show.
Of course, man.
It's a
Hey, what's going on?
Happy to be back, man. It's football season and full swing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Oh, yeah. So let's get right down to it. I guess a little bit of recruiting news first. We'll kind of go off. Not a lot going on right now, but there is a little bit of news with a few guys. I don't know if you guys have seen it out there. Paul, Danny, Jock, Anthony Lucas. Kind of talking a little bit about Miami recently, saying that one of his last visits is going to be to Miami, and who's a big defensive tackle, which is definitely going to be a position of need coming up soon here. Even though it seems to be pretty deep right now, you still have. You still want to get some of these guys like Anthony Lucas, and also I think the bigger news was Kamari Wilson saying that his last visit before the early signing period is going to be the Miami Hurricanes, which is obviously huge news at the safety position or slash corner defensive back position, as well as he's rated, I believe, the number one safety in the country. So again, number one safety in the country in the mix for the Miami Hurricanes, which is awesome. Paul, have you been able to kind of check out Kamari Wilson a little bit and what he brings as a safety? I think he's at IMG, so you're actually like down the street from him right now. Why don't you go knock on his door or something?
I'll try to get meet his ear a bit. But I mean, obviously, the ranking speaks for itself. I mean, he's. I mean, of all the rankings I've seen, he's probably top two in almost every recruiting outlet. He plays for a top school in the country. I mean, I'm not even sure if you can call him a high school anymore, an IMG Academy. So he's definitely getting tested. He's definitely getting pushed in practice every day. Definitely,
Watch
he's
IMG beat up on American
Yeah,
Heritage.
I was about to say they
oh
just beat
yeah,
up on American Heritage, man. That's huge.
yeah. People were saying that they look like they shouldn't even be playing high school teams at this point. They should be playing like D3 college teams. Like it's ridiculous. But I mean, I think Miami's communication with Wilson's been consistent. Over the course of the year. I feel like there's been a few times where I thought Wilson would commit soon, and then obviously you go on 24/7 Sports and you just see all the crystal balls kind of line up with Georgia. So it's still I feel like this is definitely a recruitment that's going to kind of go down to the wire. I think that I still think that relationships matter. Obviously, I feel like T. Rob and DVD have always just been in his ear, kind of telling him that, oh, you definitely have a chance to be a star here. I mean, we've definitely put a decent amount of safeties in the league the past few years. So I think that, I think he's definitely a guy that Miami would love to have, especially now you have James Williams, and I feel that they're definitely pitching him the idea of playing alongside James Williams in that secondary as well. So 6'1", 195. I think he played for Ford Pierce Westwood. I think what was his previous league
Here's
was.
here's the thing, Paul. I don't even know if James Williams is going to be playing safety by the time Kamari Wilson
Yeah,
gets here.
true.
That's
True, yeah.
that's true. That is true.
It'd be
But still,
Um,
hard.
hey, Cam Kitchens, right? Cam Kitchens, a couple
oh
other
yeah,
guys. Chris Graves could end up potentially being a safety as well. So,
Brian
It's good to
Balaam.
have options.
oh yeah. Uh, uh, Jock, I don't know if you've gotten to see Kamari Wilson play a little bit, or if you've seen the tape. But he's another, he's a big safety, 6'1", 195 now in high school, which is a nice size for a safety recruit. What do you want to see at
Hey,
the safety?
nice size for a safety recruit. That's a nice size for a safety in the
That's a
NFL. Like,
Yep.
that's a nice size. That's a nice size for a linebacker in high school at
yeah.
this point. But what do you want to see out of a safety if they do recruit some safeties? Because obviously we got some other news that we'll talk about with Avante Williams now. But what do you want to see out of that safety position as far as like skill wise, size
But you're
wise?
not just somebody to play next to Kamari Kitchens. because I really think that kid is going to be a star. I
Oh, Cam
think
Kitchens, yeah, Cameron
yeah,
Kitchens, yeah.
I think he has elite ball skills for a safety. Probably some of the best skills I've seen at safety in a very long time. So I think this kid, I think you have to find someone who can play like the Bubba Bolden role. I haven't watched much tape on the Kamari Wilson kid yet. James Williams, like I said, I don't see him being a safety much longer. I think he'll be like how Keontae Smith was last year. Striker moves in the backer. Now he's probably the best linebacker on the team. He had a strong camp. He's been having a strong fall camp. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. So I'm just looking for more of a strong safety type feel back there. Obviously, Avante Williams. Avante Williams. We'll see. I've heard rumblings of him getting back on the Miami team. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I can confirm that I've heard rumblings that they're trying to get the kid back in the University of Miami.
Well, yeah, I mean that's look, it's on both sides, and I actually want to get everybody's take on this with Avante Williams. Allegedly all the charges have either been dismissed or dropped, or no charges were filed eventually, and so it's Manny Diaz stated this. It's out of his hands if he gets reinstated, and at least that's what he's saying right out there.
No, it's out of his hands. That's stuff like that is the university. So
right, which makes sense.
Experience from what I know from being in the university, anytime you get those type of accusations, that's like you don't even have to worry about the coach making that call. The chancellor, or the dean of the school makes that call like, hey, we gotta get this guy off the team, and then you can go from there. But that's what happened. That's why Avante Williams probably got kicked off, because in his heart, Manny Diaz probably wanted to just suspend him, because remember, he got suspended first.
Right.
And then he got kicked off the team. So
a
lot of the time,
they probably knew ahead of time what was going to go down.
A lot of that stuff is out of their hands. So once he gets kicked off the team and kicked out of university, then it's up to them. So you probably have to go through a probation period and probably getting back into school, whatever it may be. With the charges being dropped, and another thing to the kid, don't put yourself in that situation again, because
well, if you do at that point, then you're not the brightest crayon in the box. So I get it.
You put yourself in that position, it's like, okay, the charges will drop. You still have people who are gonna feel the other way, like, hey, maybe he still did it, but maybe they had. So
well, that's what I want to get to. That's exactly what I want to get to, and I want to get Vish. I want to get you in on this, on the whole Avante Williams situation. 2-part question, right? Number one, would you have him back? And number two, is he? Do you foresee him being suspended for a certain amount of games? And and how do you feel about that whole situation?
So I don't think the suspension, I wouldn't even consider that. If I'm in a position here, look, it's great the charges were dropped for him legally. If I'm the school or Manny Diaz, you got to look into it and determine, did he actually do this or not, right? And if the answer is no, he shouldn't be suspended. He didn't do anything. To Jock's point, you got to understand your position at the University of Miami and be a little bit more discerning on what you get yourself involved in. But if he didn't do anything, I don't know what we would suspend him for. And if he did it, he probably does not deserve to be playing at the University of Miami anymore. So I don't really see a middle ground there. Now maybe there's some kind of half truth to it that would result in a suspension. That can certainly be possible, but there's a difference between being criminally guilty and having the privilege of playing college football at UM, and those aren't the same thing. So I don't think we should just take it at face value that he's not going to get charged and say, well, he's definitely innocent. And the school's got to just do their due diligence. But if it comes back that he didn't do anything, he should be on the field. Like, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. And the suspension angle to me is some kind of misunderstanding. It wasn't as bad as we thought, but he still did something. Then I'm all for second chances. Like, I don't think you don't want to tar anyone. And we're in a society where people get opportunities left and right and center, and we shouldn't just throw him out. But if he did the full thing, then I think he should find another place to continue his career.
Jock, go ahead. What do you think? And we'll go to Danny and then Paul.
what I know from being around college programs is the head coach knows the truth already. So Manny Diaz knew what happened way before anything went down, before he got suspended off the team. I'm probably 100% sure that Manny Diaz is probably the first guy alarmed, or whoever his position coach was, probably called him right away, let him know, hey, this is what happened. So they know the whole truth. Um, you know, if he does come back and there's any type of suspension, it's just because he did it and they don't want to have any backlash towards it. But to Vicious' point, he does deserve a second chance, even though it's the magnitude of him putting his hands on a woman, a pregnant woman at that. He deserves a second chance. Tyreek Hill got a second chance as well. He got a second chance out of lower school, but the charges weren't dropped against him, so we couldn't really say if he did it. Like, you know what I'm saying? We don't know the whole background story, but he deserves a second chance. I don't know if it's going to be at the University of Miami. Just depends on the whole shakeout of everything. But if he didn't do anything, the kid deserves to be out there playing. Only thing is, I don't know if he's going to get on the field right away because you practice a whole camp without him. So I think they're going to roll with their starters. But he does deserve a second chance, whether it's in Miami or somewhere else. Especially he didn't get criminally charged for it. He deserves a second chance.
Annie, what do you think?
I think, you have to be very careful, look at all the facts with this type of situation, and if he is found innocent and if he does not get criminally charged, he does deserve a second chance. If there are criminal charges, then like Vish said, there's no room for him at the University of Miami. It's really a black and white situation. Now, in terms of what it means on the football field, like Jacques said, Miami's managed to practice, a whole camp without him. And not only that, but down the road, they're recruiting the safety position very well. So if this situation
Good point.
becomes too much of a headache, I could see them just wanting to cut ties with Williams if things start to go south.
Yeah. Wrap that up for us, Paul, so that we can get to the position breakdowns.
I got you. So I kind of share the same sentiment as everyone mentioned, especially Jock. Obviously, domestic violence is such a very huge subject. Especially like in the past 10 years. I think it's definitely I think a lot of these cases are definitely not going I guess hidden. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a phrase to really say it, but I couldn't. But like you guys said, like I think that if Coach Diaz probably knows the truth for sure what actually happened, and I think as they were mentioning a big reason why the charges were dropped was because the victim, I'm guessing Avante's baby mama, essentially, I guess was not cooperative with the case. But I mean, I think I can't blame Coach Diaz for, I guess, essentially reacting the way he did initially, wanting to even just kick him off the team, if that was, even talk about like right then and there, just because, I mean, when you at least go off what was heard, she was 7 months pregnant, imagine like, these allegations too, like if he did beat her very hard, then, who knows what would happen to the baby. It could have been very, very serious. So, and at the end of the day, I think, they are investigating. I'm sure, the president of UM, the dean and everything, they're doing their due diligence with trying to find out what exactly happened. And let's assume that, the victim, she's still not cooperating with this investigation. They really can't prove that anything happened. You know what I mean? It's like they can't, it's kind of weird in how they would go about this, just because like, if they can't really prove that anything happened, then they have no reason to, I guess, to punish him, if that makes sense. But I also agree with you guys too, where just like, Tay needs to be a lot smarter at this, and knowing that, he is a student athlete at the University of Miami with a big opportunity in his hands, not only just to go to school for free, but also play football at the next level, and I think he definitely needs to be a lot more cognizant of, where he stands, and that, it's so easy to lose this kind of opportunity, when so many people they would do anything to be in his shoes right now, so this is definitely a big learning lesson for Tay, and I I'm just very curious to see how this unfolds, to be honest, because I don't even know which direction this could go in.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely going to be interesting.
I'll just say this on that point. I will say I do trust Manny Diaz's decision making and things like this. I think he's been very balanced in his 2 years here. He hasn't always been like you're out of here, and he hasn't just been a pushover like oh shucks I'll go talk to the cop and get the thing dropped. I think he's been pretty fair in how he's dealt with situations like this. So I do trust him to kind of look at all the evidence and make the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move right into some position breakdowns because next week we're going to be doing all game preview as Miami takes on Alabama Crimson Tide on September 4th at 3:30 p.m. Still trying to get to Atlanta, by the way, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's start off with position that right now. I mean, listen, we need all the healthy bodies we can get. We've obviously been seeing, I don't know if everybody's been following Twitter. There's been some talk about some suspensions, and also, look, at the end of the day, man, this is a really important subject. It's mental health, right? And if you've been following anything on Twitter, you've noticed some specific tweets that some of the Miami Hurricane players have been making lately. I don't really want to get into them, but it does affect the offensive line as Isaiah Walker. We're praying for him and his family. But look, in my breakdown that I wrote a couple weeks ago for 5 Reasons Sports, I did think that he was going to be our sleeper offensive lineman that was really going to be able to get in and contribute this year. A very versatile offensive lineman, the transfer out of Florida. But everybody has issues in life, and he seems to be struggling with some stuff right now, so hopefully he gets the help he needs. But that's going to be a big one. And also DJ Scaife, who apparently may be serving a suspension or having some issues as well. So I kind of want to start. I want to go around the horn a little bit on the offensive line and break down a little bit of that line and what you can see being the starting five, really, and kind of just talk about who you think is going to make the biggest impact on the offensive line. Vish, let's start off with you on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest addition is going to be getting Donaldson back in there and healthy. He played a little bit last year and pancaked some people, which I think got us all excited. But even as a freshman, he was excellent. I think that's someone that we definitely missed last year. I would also say, obviously, when he first started here, Zion Nelson was not good. He wasn't ready to play yet, I don't think. But he persevered and overcame that. He's now excellent. And so I think it's been a long time. I know there's some issues, and you just highlight them, but I think it's been a long time since we've had an offensive line this ready to contribute across the board. I don't really see any position where I'm like we're really weak there, or that's problematic, or that's inexperienced. We've spent a lot of time the last couple of years bleeding in people and getting them prepared for this, and I'm fairly confident in this position. But definitely, I think just adding Donaldson to the mix, because we were pretty good up front last year, definitely better than we had been in the previous few years. And now adding Donaldson to that mix, I feel like we can take another step. So he's the one I'm most excited to see. Plus, I love it when the big guys just knock people over, and he does that. So just from a personal standpoint, I'll enjoy watching him crush people. But I think our offensive line's in really good shape this year.
Yeah, you bring up a great point with Donaldson. He's in the best shape of his career so far. I don't know if our running game was struggling because necessarily the offensive line, and Jock, maybe I want to get to you on this, but I think it was more because our running backs were having an issue staying healthy, right? We saw a glimpse, Cam Harris out, we saw Don Chaney out, Jalen Knighton, all three top running backs out at some point in the season, so they really couldn't get it going. Jock, do you think that this offensive line has kind of figured out how to do both really well, both run block and pass block, or what do you think is kind of their strength, and what player do you see as kind of like that breakout player this year on the offensive line?
I think Miami's biggest thing, to be honest, was bringing back the center, Gaynor. If I'm not,
Corey Gaynor. Yeah, you got it.
I think that was the biggest thing. It's a lot of continuity up front. A lot of those guys took that 5th and 6th year. They came back. So they got continuity up front, which is something that makes you a great offensive line in college. You look at some people who play, multiple freshmen, and then by those guys' junior and senior year, they're a formidable front. And I think that's what happened with Miami. You look at Nelson. He was bad his freshman year, just had a continuity around. Now he's slated to be a top 10 pick. So and for him, it's pressure on him, but he just has to play his game. I know the giraffe hype gets to your head, and you try to make everything perfect. But I think the biggest piece back is Gainer, man. I believe that he's gonna make the biggest impact on the offensive line because he's just commanding it, and it's a lot of continuity up there. So I think that was the biggest thing they had back. And health is always, the biggest thing in football. Like if a team is healthy, the Eric King doesn't go down in that bowl game. I think Miami wins the game because they were pushing at the last bit. So health is always an issue. So the team that has, but we're gonna see how good they are, immediately because Alabama is returning 10 out of 11 starters on defense. So we're gonna really see how good they are up front.
Yep, that's good. That's an interesting point you bring up. I definitely love Corey Gaynor. I think he's the, quote unquote quarterback of that offensive line. He definitely, calls out all the plays and reads, helps read the defense and whatnot. So I think that you make a great point. Him coming back for his what seems like his 12th year is I think a great thing. But as you mentioned, man, the backup, the depth at the offensive line is important to mention right now because we do have at least some semblance of depth, right? You've got Ja'Kai Clark can play center. He can play the guard positions. We've seen him do both. You've got the transfer from UNLV that came in. Although I can't even pronounce his last name, but his familiarity with Garen Justice, of course, because Garen Justice was over at UNLV before he came over here. So, and a couple of the other guys, right? I think I like Zelante Hillary a lot. Obviously, you've got, hopefully Isaiah Walker stays healthy and is able to contribute at some point as well. But the left side is intriguing to me because I thought that it was going to be Donaldson and Zion Nelson. It's actually Jalen Rivers has been playing a lot on the left side with Zion Nelson. Well, with DJ Scaife, really, because Zion Nelson has been out a little bit. But now Zion Nelson is back at practice. So for me, before I get to you two, I think the most important thing is that Zion Nelson lives up to the hype, okay? Because everybody's putting this first-round grade on him, right? This top 10 pick, potential top 10 pick. I'm not saying that I don't see that, but I think that's a huge jump from where he was last year. Even though you saw the talent there, you saw him developing and getting better, that's a huge jump from where he was last year to being a potential top 10 pick this year. If he lives up to that hype, I think that's going to be huge because Jalen Rivers, I think, is an absolute stud. He's a beast. As your left guard, he's 6'4", 325 pounds. That's a big dude for a left guard. So that's solid right there. If you can run on that left side, if Zion Nelson stays healthy and he's productive, then you've got yourself some really dangerous opportunities to run the ball on that side. Paul, I want to get to you on this. For me, it's Zion Nelson. Who's your pick, and what do you see on that offensive line?
Well, I think obviously, literally, Jock took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to mention how them coming into this year with a lot of continuity is a big, big plus. I mean, in their unit right now, there's 190 combined starts.
Wow,
and that's an NCAA record. And obviously, I mean, you can kind of attribute it to the little special rule that they sprinkled in this year with like Gaynor playing like his 6th year, the Houston transfer, Jared Williams playing in like his 7th year or something. But no, I think the big thing for Miami now is, like you mentioned, Nelson kind of living up to the hype. Because I mean, imagine if he's a top 10 pick, as everyone supposes, then he's probably the best left tackle in the ACC, which means that would definitely help with the schedule.
He's the best left tackle in the country at that point.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So he should have that. He should have King's blindside basically just locked up. Like, that should not even be a worry for Garrick at all, especially with him coming off knee surgery. And, with Rivers, I guess. I mean, Rivers is still, I think he's a redshirt freshman, right? He got redshirted last year, didn't play that much. So I'm getting him at the full end. I think he dropped like 40 pounds too. So he's definitely in way better shape. Gaynor, we kind of know what to expect from Gaynor, and I think he's just getting better as time goes on. Donaldson also, it's a big story that Donaldson's coming back, especially with him mentioning recently how for 6 months he literally couldn't even walk. But given the time now to kind of recover, get in better shape, obviously, and to kind of just ready himself for basically his senior season is big for Miami. And I mean, at right tackle too, I mean, I think it's presumed that Jared Williams would be the starter again. But like you mentioned, there's also the Houston transfer, Justice. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce
All
his name either.
something. It's like trying to say Vitch's last name. It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
On the money, on the money. So I think that it's kind of reassuring now that they do have a unit that is also as well versed with the offense. So obviously they have a year under their belt with Lashley, and they have an offensive line coach they can trust in Garrett Justice, who's definitely helping the guys better, time in and time out. So I think it's still it's very exciting to see that kind of all come together, especially with Derek King coming back, the running backs all coming back. So I think offensive line's in a good position this year.
Danny, real quick, because I definitely want to move on, but you're kind of in the land of the big man up there in the Northeast, and you cover the Big Ten as well, so you know a little bit about big men,
Not the
right?
Big Ten anymore.
absolutely.
They're Alliance.
Yeah, well, they're still the Big Ten, but it is an alliance, which obviously I definitely want to get to that too, because that's huge news. But
that is big news.
but the big uglies, man, those guys down there in the trenches. What's it going to take for Miami to have a dominant O line?
It's going to take a lot of making sure that you can be versatile as an offensive line. And it sounds simplistic, but back in your day, since I'm a young spring chicken compared to you,
Thanks, man. Thanks.
You used to see lines that were either good at pass blocking or run blocking, but never both. Now, with the way that athletes are training and the way that defensive linemen are getting bigger and faster, linemen need to be quick with their hands, sturdy on their feet, and versatile. So if Miami can just focus on battling in the trenches and fighting, then I think that they will have a good shot at making some noise this year. Because last year, some games they were good, some games they were not so good. So consistency, especially like you guys mentioned, with the offense coming back for the most part, it's going to take consistency and just doing the sound things fundamentally game after game. Is Jazz on mute?
I sure am. No, I'm not. You mentioned consistency, right? You mentioned the offense bringing back all these guys. Look, at the end of the day, let's talk about the wide receiver position, because this offense is going to get a test right off the bat, with possibly the number one defense in the country. Okay, like Jock mentioned, they get 10 of their 11 guys back. Okay, I think the only guy they really lost is Surtain, right? Pat Surtain. That's really who they lost.
They lost
so.
They lost Baymore up front, but I guess they brought back.
Oh, that's right, Barmore. Yeah, that's right, Christian Barmore as well.
The
So
guy they had Malachi Moore. I think he played a lot of snaps last year. So
right. So I mean, look, you know how that defense is, right? So consistency is going to be huge, and obviously you're going to see a new. Well, we assume a new starting three. Right at that, well, 2 out of the 3 guys are going to be new with Charleston Rambo and Keyshawn Smith, but the mainstay is obviously Mike Harley there, which we know that he's going to produce. He's going to put up some decent numbers, and he's going to make plays. What we really want to talk about is, I really want to talk about Charleston Rambo. I want to talk about Keyshawn Smith, Xavier Restrepo. I want to talk about those guys because I think we all know that it's going to be really important for those guys to produce and be able to get open, create some separation. Jock, the wide receivers, you played the opposite of them, right? You played probably the toughest position on the field, covering, and it was covering those guys. Talk to me a little bit about the consistency and what Miami needs to do from the wide receiver position. Aside from Mike Harley, we know what he brings, but Rambo and even some of the other guys. Talk to me a little bit about what you see from that position and what they need to do to kind of stay consistent and be able to produce.
Well, Rambo, I think he's going to add another big play threat because he does make a lot of explosive plays. Even at Oklahoma, he was a big play guy. You look at Mike Harley, you just got to continue to build on what he's doing, obviously. It's the third slot. I mean, Smith has been there, and he's been really, really, really good. I've heard so many great things about him. for count. He's rocking the 5 too. We all remember the last number 5 receiver that was there.
Oh man,
Turned out to be a Hall of Fame career.
if he could be half of what that guy was.
So it's just that, and then it's just the guys falling in behind them. Miami's gonna always have playmakers. Let's just be honest. This is university. They're gonna always have skilled guys. I just think the offense and eliminating drops. Last year, drops were a huge issue out of the group. They missed a lot of big plays. I can't really think of a game where the receiving core really disappeared. They never disappeared. I just think they missed a lot of big plays last year. And Cole Wiggins, it was never the problem of getting open. The problem was catching the damn ball. So hopefully they don't have this problem this year, but it's just going to be consistency. And I think Rambo helps that with his leadership. I think Smith comes on very strong. And a guy that we're not adding to the receiver tree is Will Mallory, who I think is going to make the biggest difference. I think he adds way more than Brevin Jordan brought to the offense last year because I think he's a very, very good tight end. I think he has the ability to probably be a first-round tight end, or how he can work the middle of the field, his athleticism. I think he's a very good player.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's group in the tight ends also, since we can kind of go on for days, but let's group in the tight ends also. I think that right behind him is a kid that I think he's going to be an All-American here eventually, is Elijah Arroyo. If you just look at his size, his speed, his strength already as a freshman, he's the same size as Will Mallory is right now, and Will Mallory's a junior or a senior now. So Will Mallory is coming off an injury, but he seems to be healthy as far as what we've seen out in practice as well. But Vish, look, we can talk about how great Will Mallory is, because he is, and Elijah Arroyo coming up, and the top 3 guys, and then you could even bunch in Xavier Restrepo there, right? But I think the most important thing is the other guys. For me, what I've seen a lot of from in practice is Michael Redding is starting to step up a little bit, and the three amigos, or the 3 hyenas, as Mike Harley likes to call them, the 3 hyenas is the freshman kids, Romello Brinson, Brashard Smith, and really primarily Jacoby George. Jacoby George has shown some amazing playmaking ability, and I know, and actually me and Jock spoke about this, is it hasn't been in pads, or it hasn't been when he's getting hit. Well, he showed it in the scrimmage games as well, and I know they go a little more live there, and he was still able to produce. I think he had 5 catches for 127 yards in the first scrimmage, and the second scrimmage he did some damage as well. So I'm excited about the younger guys. Vish, based off of what you've heard and what you've seen, what are you most excited about, and who can you see having kind of that not breakout, but that sleeper wide receiver aside from those top guys?
So I know you included Restrepo in the top guys, but he hasn't really played much, and he's the guy I think is going to take a big leap. He's explosive, and Jock hit the nail on the head. Harley was so good last year drawing the defense. There were so many plays to be made, and even as bad as it was, we made some plays. Like he said, that they didn't disappear in any game, but like you kind of remember, Pope caught the ball against Virginia Tech, so we won that game, right? But
right.
It was just like the fact that you can remember like the big plays they made, like that's not good, right? So there's just so much opportunity for people to step up and make plays, just because you got Harley attracting so much attention, and they got to worry about De'Aaron King running. The field's open. And now you got Rambo in there as a proven playmaker. So that third guy, I think, is just going to have a lot of a chance to exploit it. And Jock also touched on Mallory taking defenders with him. And he's taller than Brevin Jordan. He's a better pass catcher. I think he's going to be a huge weapon. Like, he doesn't really need to be open. And so you just take all that together. That's why I'm looking at Restrepo as, I think, kind of that guy that can work in between the hash marks and just have all sorts of space to make plays, run after the catch, and really exploit areas of the field I felt were open last year that just drop after drop. And I mean, some of those games were double-digit drops, ridiculous stuff we saw last year. I think that's the area where I can see him stepping up really big and make an impact. I think those freshmen you mentioned, they'll get opportunities as the year goes on. They'll play in more, but just right off the bat, I don't know that we're going to see them that much against Alabama. Whereas I think Restrepo's ready to step in there and play a big role in that game.
talk about a guy that can be open without being open. Restrepo is one of those guys as well, because he makes all the tough catches. So if you put a ball where only he can catch it, he's going to catch it, and that's what we missed last year. Vish, you brought up a great point. That's exactly what we missed last year, is the guys that can make those tough catches, or even the easy ones as well. Even the easy. I hate to say it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Real quick, we'll kind of push along here with the wide receiver and tight ends. Just give me your guy that's going to break out, or give me your guy that you really want to see break out, Paul, and what you can see for this wide receiver team. Wide receiver group.
Well, real quick, I know I think Jog said that, like, it never really felt like the receivers disappeared. Well, I mean, some games, were they even, like, there to even say they disappeared? I still think about the bowl game, the Oklahoma State game, where, man, Pope and Wiggins dropped a lot of great throws from Kosi. And Kosi was 18 of 35, I think, for like 330 yards, I think. I think there were like 4 or 5 drops that would have put him over 400 for that game. And it's insane to think about that. But I think that, obviously this is a guy that's obviously gotten a lot of attention, and he's basically gotten everyone excited, but Keyshawn Smith. I feel like Keyshawn Smith plays taller than what he actually is. Like, there's some games last year where I thought like he was 6'5", but then I found that he's really like 6 foot or something, and I'm like, oh wow, like
he's not huge. Yeah, he's not
exactly, but he knows what to do. He has solid speed. I feel like he definitely has an eye for the ball. And I think now, definitely this year it's going to be very interesting, just because you see a lot more guys kind of creeping into the rotation, like obviously bringing in Rambo. You hear about Brinson, Kobe George, even Rashard Smith, those guys possibly finding their way into the rotation. So I think a lot of guys are definitely going to get their looks, but I think Keyshawn Smith definitely, we can't sleep on, obviously Harley, Rambo do their thing, but I think Smith will probably be like the receiver that probably gets a lot of open looks because of that. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And he's only a sophomore, I think. I'm not sure if he took the red shirt last year or whatever. He played a lot, so I'm not sure. But I think just to take a really big leap this year is definitely something that shouldn't be, I guess. How do I say this? I feel like it's definitely, at least for me, it's expected. Like, I'm definitely excited to see what he can do this year, especially with like a lot of other receivers getting attention. Mallory, Rambo, Harley. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
I know we haven't mentioned these guys, Danny. I'm gonna leave the hard question to you, man. I know we haven't mentioned them at all, except for all the negativity that's been surrounding them, and poor guys. Because look, at the end of the day, man, they're still Kane, so we want to see them be successful. Can you imagine at any point where you would see Mark Pope and D. Wiggins having an impact on a game this year? I leave the tough questions to Danny, man.
I know, and this is a tough one. Now we have enough depth. Like last year, it seemed like we were always mentioning 3 guys at the wide receiver position: Wiggins, Pope, and Harley. This year, we have enough depth and enough skill to where they don't necessarily need to make an impact at the position. We want them to, but I could easily see them being phased out of the equation as well. I want them to succeed. Will they? I don't know.
One word. Okay, will they succeed? Yes or no, Paul? One word, Paul. One word.
I hesitated there, so that for me is kind of a no.
All right, Vish.
No.
Jock.
Yeah, they'll make some impact plays this year.
I'm gonna say yes, maybe like 1 or 2. Anyways, all right. So let's turn it over to the other 1 or 2. Let's turn it over to the other. I think D. Wiggins makes a play on defense. How about that, Jock? You like that one, huh? You like that one?
Hey, more the defense, he'll get drafted.
I love to get Jock on that, man. And listen, I'm with you, man. Hey, I'm with you. Anyway, speaking of defense. Okay, we'll break down the front 7. We'll kind of go through the front 7 because I think that, listen, this defense is going to go as that front 7 goes, because I think in the backfield, we'll talk about the defensive backs. I think obviously that safety room is pretty loaded with some depth, and defensive backs aren't too shabby either if you really look at it. So I think it's going to be the biggest impact is going to be in the front seven. At the ends, I think are going to be very important to understand. Listen, we don't have Jalen Phillips, we don't have Quincy Roche, we don't have obviously Rousseau, we don't have those guys. Okay, so do I expect them to be those guys? Absolutely not. But they're going to have to all make some sort of impact as a collaborative effort to be able to, for this front seven, for the defense to have a chance in ball games to make plays, right? And so for me, it's important. We could talk about the interior guys all day, how good they can be or they will be with Nesta, with Jared Harrison Hunt, even John Ford coming back, of course, Leonard Taylor. Jordan Miller dropping like 60 pounds, looking lean, looking mean, which is great. For me, it's about those guys on the outside, man. Jafari Harvey, DeAndre Jordan. And honestly speaking, I think that Zach McLeod is going to have a huge impact on the edge as a rusher this year, putting his hand on the ground. I just think that that's his position. He's comfortable playing it. He said it time and time again that's his natural position, is putting his hand on the ground. And I see Jock shaking his head. But listen, man, if it's his natural position and maybe he's got a better feel for it than he did playing linebacker, I think it's only going to help him. I think that we're going to need him to be more successful. Yeah. We're going to need him to make plays. So, Jock, if you're shaking your head, tell me what you think.
Trenches is very different, my brother.
I know, but that's his natural position. He's even said it. That's his natural spot. He's comfortable playing that position because he's played it all his life, except when he came here. So tell me why wouldn't that help him? Why wouldn't he be better off playing that as opposed to playing linebacker?
I mean, we'll see. Obviously, it's a big jump. It's a different ball game. Obviously, if the guy can win with his pass rush moves, you look at what you had in the past, it's a different ball game. You know what I'm saying? You had two first round picks, and then you had Roche. He wasn't bad either. So you have to just take your luck. But we'll see what he does. I'm not doubting the kid. I will hope he has a good season because he's gonna be important to Miami's success. I honestly don't think the D-line is that great this year. I don't think they have the depth that we're accustomed to seeing the last 3 to 4 years where they were deep. I don't see them having that. I think Alabama's going to take advantage of that when they do get in that type of game. But I do think Miami up front will be okay. I'm interested to see the linebacker position with Flagg and Smith. But I think Smith probably is going to take the jump and be the best linebacker on the team.
Yeah, I love what he's showing as far as from a leadership standpoint. He did play a little bit of linebacker as well in high school, so he knows the position. He's comfortable at the position. Is he a smaller guy? Sure, but at the end of the day, Jock, you've said this a lot. I mean, the linebacker position is not what it used to be. The 250-pound guys, right? It's more of the 220s and the 230s. 230s. Exactly.
Smith, you can kind of tell, because
he's gained weight. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger, but I don't, he's probably what, 210, 215?
Yeah. And I got to tell you guys, in college, the striker position is a bona fide linebacker, right? So any of those guys playing that position, because the college is more run-oriented. When you get to the NFL, that's why a lot of those guys who play striker or star, whatever the hell they play, they either move to linebacker or safety, because that's what it is. Like in the league, it's true nickels. Like they have true guys who can cover because it's more of a passing league.
Right. Yeah. Paul, for me, he and Jock mentioned that striker position, man. I think that at the end of the day, one of the best linebackers on this team is going to end up being Chase Smith. I think he's playing striker now, but I think he's already so big. He's up at 220, I think now, 215, 220 already. And he's 6'2", 6'3", so he's a bigger dude as well. He might end up being one of the best linebackers on the team, aside from maybe if you talk about like a James Williams. Talk to me a little bit about the front seven, what you see and what they need to do to be successful as well.
Well, I do agree with you guys. I think that at least the defensive line is still very, very young and experienced, and it's weird saying that just because obviously you have John Ford, Jared Harrison Hunt, and even Zach McLeod on the outside, but I still think that especially at defensive end, because you're gonna have McLeod and you're gonna have Harvey, at the ends. I think there's still going to be a lot of growing pain.
And DeAndre Johnson as well.
DeAndre Johnson too as well. And I think he's on the second team right now. And I think even last year we thought that Harvey would take the next step in his development, kind of be that guy, especially if they were to sub out Roche or Phillips. But I think he flashed sometimes, but definitely I don't think it was what we thought it would be. So, I'm really hoping that this year is a year where Harvey really takes that next step. But I think also defensive tackle is going to be very interesting. I think having Ford come back is huge. Definitely having experience is definitely big for them. Jared Harrison Hunt, I believe he was dealing with injuries for a bit last year too. So hopefully he stays healthy. I mean, we know what he can do. Super athletic for a defensive tackle. Play basketball in high school. We've kind of, there's definitely something going on with him. But I still am very, very, very excited to see what Leonard Taylor can do this year.
Yeah.
I mean this year. Like,
I think he's going to have an impact this year. If you've seen his, by the way, speaking of Jafari Harvey, if you look at, they just posted recently a side-by-side comparison of his body and what he looked like last year as opposed to this year. And in a good way, it looks like Jafari Harvey ate Jafari Harvey. He looks huge. He looks jacked up. He looks like he's gained a lot of size. Hopefully that transitions on the field. But, David Feely in that strength program looks to be doing really good. Vish, the front seven is important. I know that everybody talks about the linebacker position. I kind of want to focus a little bit on the linebacker position with you because, we talk Flag and we talk Keontre Smith. We really don't talk about too many of the other guys like the Sam Brooks of the world, Bradley Jennings. Wayman Steed apparently has taken a step up as well this camp. So, what do you want to see from that linebacker position?
Yeah, we have a lot of guys that we've been kind of waiting on. You mentioned Sam Brooks. Like, I expected at this point in his career he would have locked down a starting spot and be like a regular starter, and he hasn't. And it doesn't look like he will this year. So I think there's just a lot of talent there that has not shown it, and so people like that really need to step up. You mentioned Bradley Jennings. He played a lot last year. Frankly, didn't look that great. I guess it is a positive that they moved McLeod out of the. Well, I mean, unless you're just going to write off McLeod as a linebacker, but the fact that they moved him to D line does at least lead me to believe that there is some depth there. Then they're comfortable with what they have there, and I totally agree with Jock on Keontre Smith. In college, you just got to flow to the football. He's got that ability to do that, and also cover. So to me, he'll be really successful if our D line can occupy blockers.
Who, Smith?
Yeah,
I think he's like 5'11", actually.
5'10", 5'11". Yeah.
But he'll be fine if we can keep the linemen off him. If our D line gets overrun and the linemen start getting up into Smith, he's not going to be able to get off blocks.
Yeah, he's definitely a run and chase backer right now.
Yeah, so he's not going to be able to get off blocks. So that's going to be key. Like guys like Nestor Severo have got, like this guy's a junior now. He's got to be able to occupy multiple blockers to allow those linebackers to make plays. If the D line gets pushed back, we're going to be screwed. Essentially, I don't think any of these guys are those big types of like play through blocks linebackers. They're all flow to the ball linebackers, and if the D line doesn't do their job, the linebackers are just going to get overrun, and that's how like the North Carolina game happened.
Well, and I'll tell you what, that's exactly, and I guarantee you that's exactly what Nick Saban is doing. He's going to run it. He's going to run it and run it and run it, and he's going to try to run as much as he can, knowing exactly what we're talking about right now. And if we can't stop it, then they're going to run for 500 yards on us also. And so at the end of the day, they're going to have to kind of get it together on that in the front seven in order for this game. And I know we'll preview it next week, but in order for this to be a game, they're going to have to do that. So, talking a little bit about the striker, and then we can kind of transition over to the DB as well. Danny, I kind of want to start off with you right now. It's Gilbert Frierson at the striker position, and rightfully so. He may be right now the best player on the defense, and that's not a knock on him. That's actually praising him. Gil, he's kind of shown why he's locked down that striker position, but also why he's rated one of the best quote unquote outside linebackers in the country as well. So I think I'm excited to see what he is going to do this year. But some of the guys behind him that are playing as well, like your Chase Smiths, and some of the other guys that are playing the striker role. I can't even think of somebody else that plays a striker role as well, but I know there's someone there that I'm missing. But Chase Smith.
We might see Amari Carter.
Amari Carter, there we go. Yep, Amari Carter is another kid that we'll probably see play a little striker as well. But talk to me about the impact from the striker position and what you can see this year there, and even transition over to defensive backs also.
Well, I think when you talk about the depth, you mentioned a guy like Chase Smith. And Chase Smith, whenever I would read the spring practice recaps, he was a name that popped up a lot. And so I'll be interested to see what he can do this year, because from everything I've heard from you guys and from all the highlights I watched, he looked like somebody who could make an impact right away. And I remember doing our spring game show, post the spring game, and we talked about depth and making sure that we had guys that could play and not just the starters. So Smith is a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing, how much time will he see on the field, because we know he can play. It's just a question of being able to put it all together, and he certainly did in the spring. Now, when you talk about a guy like Frierson, he had 53 tackles last year and 9 tackles for a loss, started all 11 games. There is some continuity there. That's a player that can play the position, and that's going to be important for Miami, especially when you face a team like Alabama who takes advantage of your weaknesses right away. They can identify and exploit weaknesses, and we'll get more into this next week. But I really like not only what the striker position can do right now, but also the young depth that the program is developing for the future. Yeah,
look, Gil. Again, I mentioned it again. I think Gil Frierson is the best player on this defense right now, from a talent perspective. But what he does, he's so versatile. And Vish, he can cover if he needs to cover, which is very, very nickel-like, right? He can play that nickel position per se, but he can also, cover a tight end or rush the quarterback and, do so many different things. And I think Chase Smith and Amari Carter can do the same. Amari Carter, I think his biggest, downfall is coverage ability, and you guys can probably speak on this.
He can't cover worth the game.
There you go. Right. So
his biggest downfall is getting ejected for targeting, but
right. I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to be a jerk. But yeah,
hopefully,
we all know what's gonna happen.
He came to our practice. I think probably like a week ago.
He did.
Yeah, he came to the South Miami practice. So.
Oh, look at that! That's cool, man. Did he hurt anybody over there or no? I had to. But Vic, talk to me a little bit about that striker position, and what you can kind of see from Gil Frierson, Chase Smith.
I know Chase Smith has had a lot of accolades coming in, but to me, it's just Frierson's position, and you hit the nail on the head with the versatility. That's what you need out of that position, and that's what you need in college football today. You got teams that spread it out, but they're actually power running at you, and then you got teams that might play a little bit tighter, but actually are throwing. So having someone like that in that position is what allows you to play to kind of match up. And he's going to be, I think, the key person on the defense, because like you said, he can play against the run and the pass, he can rush the passer, and we're going to need that to match up with teams. And so for me, Frierson's definitely the guy on defense to watch, in terms of just, I think how he goes, the defense will really go, because he hasn't taken ownership of that position yet. Again, I think they believe in him too, as another kind of tell when they moved Keontre Smith to linebacker. I think that's because they kind of wanted them both on the field, and they knew Frierson was kind of the guy at striker. So I expect a big year out of him, and I think he's got all the ability to kind of lead that defense out of that position.
I'm with you there. I think the biggest intrigue, Paul, because I kind of want to move. I think everybody kind of has that sentiment that Frierson is up there with probably the best player on the defense right now. He's going to make a big impact. But I think the most intriguing position right now on the defense, if you ask me, aside from linebacker, because I know, but we kind of know who's going to start at linebacker, right? We know it's Flagg and Keontre Smith, and the rest kind of just we'll see. The cornerback position is interesting to me, because we've seen times where Tyreek Stevenson is covering the slot, right? And then we've seen times where he's playing outside. And then we're hearing talk that maybe he comes back next year if he doesn't get a good score, he might come back and play safety next year. So this is intriguing to me, this cornerback position, because we think that Tyreek has one side locked down. But the other side, I think, is still up for grabs. I mean, look, DJ Ivy has played really well in fall. I've kind of mentioned it a little bit in my practice reports. But also, you got Al Blades, who's working back in. I know he's starting to work with the safeties a little bit now too, because we need a little bit more depth there. But you've got Corey Couch, who we thought, hey, look, this guy's going to be a great inside guy, but he's playing a lot on the outside. And you've got Isaiah Dunson, who's playing a lot as well. And you've got Marcus Clark, who's playing. So, this is a really interesting position right now because I don't think it's settled yet on who's going to start. And that's not a bad thing because I think they're all talented. But I think it's interesting to kind of see what's going on, the development of the cornerback position right now, and who's going to be the top two guys. I think at the end of the day, Stevenson is one of the lockdowns. But let me tell you, he is a big cornerback. He's all of 210 pounds. That is a big cornerback. But you know what? What I like about him is that he's played SEC football, okay? He's played against Alabama and Florida and all these big teams, okay? So I like that about him. Obviously, his size concerns me a little bit because he's so big, but at the same time, he's been able to cover, right? He's physical, he's strong, and he's got a little bit of quickness. So I think he'll be fine. But the other side of the football is interesting to me. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, the other side of the field is interesting to me. I want to kind of get into that a little bit, and I'll start with Jock because Jock, this. I don't want to say this is your position of expertise, but it kind of is. So I'd like to hear what you think about the cornerback position for Miami right now, and what you can kind of see settling in, and who do you think is going to start at the end of the day?
Well, I think Corey Couch is probably number one, like your number one corner. I think he had a strong freshman year. Stevenson, I'm not that sold on. I haven't been really sold on him anyway when he was at Georgia. I haven't been sold on his ability. I think he can be a great, probably nickel corner. He's a little big for a corner, 6'2", 210. So we'll see how he transitions, and I'll see this year. I'll be able to tell you if he can come back or is he a safety or not. On the other side, I think you got DJ Ivy, Al Blades. You just got to go with one of those guys to see who would take the lead from them. I really don't. It's tough because
it's tough. There's a lot of guys in the mix right now. There's a lot of guys that are playing well.
The only guy that I can really vouch for is Corey Couch, that I know for sure. And Al Blades Jr., I think, is going to get the benefit of the doubt because I think he was playing okay before he had his little situation that caused him to miss. And let's see how good DJ Ivy's gotten. It's his 7th-year plan, so I think he should be better by now. A little bit of experience, so he brings the experience. But I think Corey Couch, I think you'll see Ivy. I think you'll see Stevenson. I think you'll see Al Blades go there.
Marcus Clark, Isaiah Dunson. I think they're all.
I think you'll see all those guys. We'll see though, because obviously they're gonna separate themselves, just like Corey Couch was. Like I told guys last year, I think Corey Couch was gonna be one of the guys that emerged as the top corner, and he did.
Yeah. Look, and a guy that we didn't even mention is Jalen Harrell, who can potentially play more of that striker role as well, or that nickel. He's a guy that moved down from safety, so that's another guy. Vish, if he mentioned a good thing to Corey Couch. He was definitely our best corner last year, I think.
I predicted that. Hey, when y'all watch the show, I predicted that. Go back, check the receipts.
Check the receipts. Anyways, yes, I know you predicted it, but it's true though, right? Corey Couch was definitely the guy. Now, the only issue I had with Corey Couch a little bit was on the outside, is going against the bigger, more physical receivers because he was smaller, but I think he's gained a little bit of weight. He's gotten stronger now. So I don't know if that's such a huge deal. And then again, it's the opposite with Stevenson. Vish, I think those are the top two guys. I think those are the top two that are going to start. If Al Blades gets healthy enough to play, I think he's going to be in the mix as well. But some of the other guys are playing well also.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. I think Stevenson and Couch are definitely going to start against Bama. And then I think Blades. I think we're going to be careful with bringing him back and not just throw him out there against Alabama on the first game back. So I expect Couch and Stevenson to kind of start there, and then to Jock's point, they're going to separate themselves out. There's a lot of talent there, a lot of unproven talent other than Corey Couch. So we kind of know he'll be there, and the rest of it's up for grabs. So I think everyone will get an opportunity, but like you mentioned this earlier, Stevenson's played in the SEC, so like just that first game, he's a big kid too, so physically he'll be able to handle it. I think he's definitely the best bet to start opposite Couch against Bama, and then from there it'll shake itself out. Like that App State game might be a big one in terms of because a lot of kids are going to get to play in hopefully a lot of kids are going to get to play in that game. Hopefully we're not.
App State is normally tough. But
they are, but they typically I know
we should be able to rotate some players in there and get some opportunities.
If Miami happens to beat Alabama and Michigan State, that's a trap game for them. So.
Well, they say that all the time, but App State hasn't won a big game in a very long time. Believe it or not, guys. They talk a big game about them because they beat Michigan that one year, but they haven't really done much since then.
14 years ago.
Really, go look back at it and check it out. They really haven't.
That was a crazy game.
A lot of the big teams, but anyways, Paul, we'll kind of end that there. And we'll go to safeties real quick. What do you think on the quarterback?
Quarterbacks. Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely, for some reason, and then just seeing how much bigger he's gotten after his offseason, I really have a good feeling about Ivy this year. I feel like Ivy is definitely excited about having DVD as his position coach. And I don't know, I think I know Rumpf has always liked him just because he's kind of fit the mold in what UM wants in their corners, which is like that long, lanky. Just an old coach, not important.
Yesterday's news, man.
Yeah, man, come on.
But so I think that now I feel like he's definitely gotten a lot stronger, and I definitely think that in a game like this, Alabama, where they're definitely going to have like higher level receivers that are probably going to be physical, that are probably going to be uber athletic. Ivy might definitely get more run in this game. And I predict that Ivy will get better. However, I still think that, I think for a guy his size and for a guy who probably was doubted a bit in the beginning, just to see how far he's come, I think Corey Couch also, I think he's proven himself, a lot. I think he's definitely, he's great in coverage, but I think he adds that level of physicality that we'd want to see, not just a cornerback, but just a University of Miami football player. Yeah. University of Miami defensive player. There's definitely something about him that, he plays like he has a chip. He plays with the chip on his shoulder. Go ahead. I feel like it's definitely more exciting. I think it's like it definitely gets fans excited just to watch him on defense.
We haven't even mentioned the fact, Danny, that the upgrade at the coaching position with T-Rob, right? Tavares Robinson and DVD, right? For that matter. How they develop these guys as well is going to be crucial because, it's been a while since we've, really seen that talent there. I think the last guy that came in here that was really, really talented was maybe Michael Jackson. I think that was kind of the last, true, really good defensive back. So, but the development, I think, is going to be huge, Danny. Not only there, but at the safety position as well, right?
Yeah, because it's one thing that we have recruited very well at the safety position and at defensive back, but it's only as good as how you develop these players. You see in college football all the time. Teams get 3 5-star kids at safety, for example, and 5 5-star kids at corner or whatever, and they just don't pan out. So to me, it's great that we have a lot of depth at safety and at corner, and there's no doubt that we have good athletes. Now they need to take the next step by being able to help out the University of Miami and help out the Hurricanes, and that starts with development.
Yep, that's huge. Look, and the same thing goes for the safety position. I think development there of some of the guys behind Bubba Bolden and Gervin Hall, I think is going to be huge in the success. We can talk about how deep it is, that safety position, and how talented it is. with James Williams, obviously. And if we get Avante Williams back, then that adds another, guy that, was the number one ranked safety 2 years ago as well. So you've got all those guys, plus you've got Keyshawn Washington, who's no slouch, who's stepped up his game this fall as well. You can see the development from him. We didn't mention Malik Curtis at cornerback. That's another guy who could potentially end up on the offensive side of the football, but right now he's a cornerback, and he's got the skill level to play cornerback. So Malik Curtis, Keyshawn Washington. You've got some of these guys, Brian Balaam, who's another guy that's a developmental guy, but could possibly see some time if we're able to get him on the field as well. I think right now we kind of know who the top two guys are, right? It's Gervin Hall and Bubba Bolden, right? And I know not everybody is sold on Gervin Hall right now. I'm probably one of those guys. So you can probably see Cam Kitchens get a lot of time. Although I think the biggest downfall with him is look, and it's not
able to tackle.
Not only that, but he sometimes, and you know what, Jock, he sometimes gets lost a little bit, right? He kind of forgets where he's. I don't want to say forgets where he's at, but he kind of gets lost. He's maybe too aggressive on certain plays, and so I've seen it in practice where some guys get behind him. So Vish, talk to me a little bit about the guys behind Gervin Hall and Bubba Bolden. They're talented. We can say that they're great, but how important is it going to be for them to kind of develop and play well?
Well, first I do expect Bolden and Hall to take majority of snaps. The position's called safety for a reason. You trust your veterans there, right? They're kind of protecting the back of the field and preventing the big plays from happening. So I expect them to get a majority of snaps. After them, it's Kitchens, like you said. Frankly, I think after him, if we had like an emergency, I think we'd probably see Carter back there before we went further into the depth chart. I know we moved him to striker because I think that's where he has more value. But if we start getting a problem at safety, I think he'd probably be back there before we go further than that. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing Kitchens as well. I think, like he said, I think he's still got to learn. He's got a lot to learn, and safety is a tough position to learn at because you make a mistake, it's a touchdown. And so it's really just a hard position to learn at. But I think he's the guy. Again, as we get further in the season, we'll work him in more. But again, Bama is just such a tough way to start the season that I think you're just going to see us lean on our veterans in that game. In particular, at safety, we have two. I'm actually, I guess, much higher on Hall than you are. He's not. He hasn't lived up to my expectations for when we brought him in. But I think he's a solid player back there, and putting him next to Bolden, I think that's by far our best duo, and I think they'll be fine.
Jock, you think James Williams gets significant, maybe not against Bama, but this year gets significant playing time at safety?
It just depends on how well he can adapt to tackling and covering at safety. Like I said, from watching the kid, he fits more in being in the box, but that's my opinion. I think Miami is gonna, do their due diligence. They probably promised the kid, hey, I'll give you a run at safety, but he's better down there. But I like Gervin Hall. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's good. I think he's okay. And I love what Bubba Bolden does. So we'll see how it goes. And Kitchens can probably be an earlier contributor. So let's just see how it rock out. I think Miami's going to go with what they trust in game one. It's such a big, high magnitude game. Now, if we're playing like some slouches, I think you'll see more rotational guys. But I think Miami's going in with the mindset they're trying to win the football game.
Yep, I agree. And you know what, Paul, I'll shoot this to you. Vish brought it up. Jock brought it up. Kitchens may end up being one of the best safeties to play here in a while, right? I think we all see the talent there. He's got five picks already in fall camp, which is way more than anybody else does, which is obviously very impressive. And he's got a ton of pass breakups also. So you see that he's starting to pick everything up. Could you see him maybe, and I think Vish mentioned this also, that right behind these two, it's probably Kitchens and then maybe Amari Carter. But do you see him being that, in the two deep chart right now, just coming out right off the bat against Alabama?
Oh, for sure. I think I don't know. I think that even when people always pay attention to the ratings, or not the ratings, the rankings, especially when rooting, and obviously most of the attention was focused on James Williams, but I don't know. It's something about Kitchens, how he plays. I feel like he's very, very cerebral and smart. He definitely is a solid tackler, definitely a solid guy in coverage. And I don't know, there's something about me he just seems to get. He's not like super flashy, but he'll make the plays needed. And I think just the way that he's been performing in camp, I mean, says a lot to that. People are raving about him. And for a freshman, it's very impressive. And I could go on about how he's basically played his high school career in one of the, I guess, most prestigious high school stadiums in the country. So he's definitely been tested each week, and I think that him performing like this is honestly no surprise to a lot of people. So especially I think outside of Bolden, especially, there's not really a for sure guy. Even when you talked about Grant Hall, who I feel like we've expected a lot more out of him up to this point, especially since his arrival at UM, who's kind of, I don't know, he's been, like Jock said, he's kind of just been okay. Like, he'll flash here and there,
It's just,
but then he'll give up a lot of plays too.
so sometimes though, like I go back talking about pro guys. Like I know we expect a lot of these freshmen, but sometimes guys just not ready. So it's nothing against them or anything. It's just the expectations that the coaches have from recruiting a kid who's a 4 or 5 star. So it's like, hopefully he's ready. But when you think about it, out of 25 5-stars, you might have 5 or 6 or 7 of them who ready and make an impact, but the other 7 are sparingly playing or whatever it is. Sometimes guys are just not ready and they have to work their way into being ready. So it's nothing wrong with that. The kid can make an improvement, but sometimes it's just these guys are not ready. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just not ready.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, for sure.
and development is huge. Development is huge at that position. And I think Jock, you can probably echo that sentiment. It's important that these safeties really develop. And if you're not ready, look, you've got Bubba Bolden, you've got Gervin Hall. You've all mentioned how those two guys, I think, are veterans. They're going to give you the best chance to win right now. But at the end of the day, it's if we can get Kitchens in there, and look, I saw James Williams play in practice, and again, of course, it was just running routes and covering and doing 1v1s or 7-on-7s, and even 11-on-11. And there was a play I saw him play come all the way from his safety position and make a play on a wide receiver at the corner. And the corner slipped or something, and he came all the way from his safety position and broke up a pass. I mean, it was really impressive. If you saw it, you'd understand what I was saying. So I still think that James Williams will get an opportunity as well. He ends up playing down in the box, I think, at the end of the day. But it is what it is. I think we're okay at safety. So, Danny, I kind of want to end this with you, and then we'll go around the horn on this. The most important position, right? Does this team goes only as far as De'Ara King takes them? I think at least I love what we have behind them. I love TVD, what TVD's been doing in fall camp, and Jake Garcia, who might be the most talented guy on this team, but I still love what TVD is doing also. It's the De'Ara King show, right? And that's it.
Yeah, and we saw him kind of get acclimated to things last year, and he put up some very good numbers. I believe he threw for 23 touchdowns last year, and that was in his first year of a new offense. Now he's had a year, on campus. He's had a year within this offense. They've got some weapons around him, and last year it seemed like he was, trying to put his name in the national conversation, and it seemed like he was always on the outside looking in. Opening up against Alabama, all eyes are going to be on him. And I think if he performs really well, this is his chance to really kind of, sort of put his name not into the Heisman conversation, but into the ears of the national pundits, because I don't want to go on a Miami gets no respect rant, blah, blah, blah. But Miami, is still on the outside looking in when it comes to the upper echelon of teams. And I think, with King at the helm, if he has a good game, like you kind of alluded to, the offense goes as far as he goes and this team goes as far as he goes. So if he has a good game on Saturday, on next Saturday rather, then I think that could really kind of spearhead a good season overall. A lot depends on the opener.
Yeah, we're gonna have to score a lot of points, right? At the end of the day, in order to beat this Alabama team, I don't want to say we're gonna have to play perfect football, but we're gonna have to limit turnovers, right? We can't give them extra plays. We can't give them extra series. De'Aaron King's gonna have to play absolutely amazing. Does he have the capability to do so? Yes, but he also has the weapons this year that he possibly really didn't have last year, right? So, Vish, I want to go to you really quick on De'Aaron King. Is it safe to say that that's it? I mean, this team goes as far as De'Aaron King takes them?
One word answer: yes.
Okay, right.
The whole team is predicated on him.
Yeah,
not just playing, but playing at a high level and being healthy. These other kids have talent, but they're not. I mean, we're talking like a 4 or 5 win total difference. If he's not, like, we're probably closer to a 500 team without him, just because of the growing pains we go through the quarterback position. With him out there, I mean, there were games last year where he essentially won it by himself. That NC State game was ridiculous. Like, I mean, that's the type of thing he can bring to the table, and we're probably going to need a performance like that against Alabama. But
it's possible, right? He can do that.
I mean, he's done incredible. Like, that game was. I rewatched it the other day. He is out of his mind in that game, and the number of times the team got down double digits, and he kept going. Like, he has that ability. He's a game changing, program changing player, and we're gonna need him. Like that. That's that bottom line. Like, there's no substitute for him. That's the one player on the entire program right now. If we don't have him, we're screwed.
Think about how important this is, and Jock, I want to go to you on this, right? Think about how you tell me if you think this is important. This is the first time ever in De'Aaron King's career that he has played in the same offensive system 2 years in a row. Never did it at Houston. This is the first time he ever does it now here in Miami. How important is it for him to be in year 2 under Rhett Lashley and know this offense from head to toe now?
Familiarity breeds success. It's just like guys going to work every day for 10 to 15 years. Like, once you know your job, you have no choice but to be good at it. Kid has talent. He's a good college quarterback. That's all he is. He's not gonna play in the NFL. So I expect him. The team is only gonna go as far as he takes them. But I think, to be honest, the success of Miami is predicated on the offense and defensive line this year. You lost a lot on the D-line with the edge rushers, so you want to see what they bring. And Miami's offensive line has expectations this year, right? So with expectations, let's see if they exceed up to perform, because God forbid Miami gets smacked against Alabama in their front and the offensive line looks terrible. It's going to be overreaction. So it's just, I think it goes as far as the O-line and D-line takes them, and I think that's probably predicated on the success, because to beat the Clemsons of the world, the Alabamas of the world, your front 5 and front 7 have to be dominant.
Paul, do you think it's this is what Jock says? It's all based off of the trenches, or is this the De'Aaron King show? Is it, as far as De'Aaron King takes us, is how good we're going to be?
He's absolutely right, and I think that you have to be living under a rock to miss how well Clemson does on the defensive line. Like, the year where Christian Wilkins got drafted by the Dolphins, they put like three of their 4 linemen went first round. That's insane. And somehow Dabo convinced all of them to come back for their senior years. I don't know how that was possible, but and Alabama too, it's the same thing. On their D line, they're always loaded. Their offensive lines are always full of NFL-sized guys. Like, those are man children there. And like Jock said, I think just like now that I guess Miami has what everyone has wanted for them, you just hope that it all kind of comes together. They have a great quarterback, and then now you have all these linemen with experience kind of coming back, all healthy, albeit too. And people complained about how inconsistent line play has been the past like 5-6 years. Well, guess what? Now you have guys that know the system, that have gotten bigger, gotten better. And, is it ultimately going to lead to wins and just a better season overall and improvement? And I think that it's just going to be a very telling tale of how much the team is growing. Obviously, I guess it's still tough for me to kind of use this Bama game as kind of like a measuring stick because I still remember a couple years ago when they played Florida in the opener, and just both teams looked super sloppy. And I feel like you just can't use even that game can't use as a barometer for how much the team has grown. Where it might just take a full season for them to kind of gel, and for even just for coaches kind of find that right recipe to the right combination of linemen, especially to see what works for them. And also, I mean, on the D line as well, I think that, everyone's talked about Miami losing Roche, Russo, and Jalen Phillips, and it ultimately it's going to lead to just see how these quote unquote new guys are going to step up. I think that, Zach McCloud at defense, it's still kind of an experiment if you think about it. He's still kind of a new position. I mean, obviously it might be just a better fit for him overall just because it's probably just less thinking, and no covering. So it's definitely going to be easier for him. And then obviously Harvey, we haven't really seen what he's fully capable of yet. We're still kind of just waiting to see if that spark kind of hits and then he goes off. But I honestly 100% agree with what Jock said. It ultimately, I mean, obviously I also agree with Fish too with the Eric King and how ultimately the team will go as far as he can take them. And it might be kind of a crap show if, God forbid he gets hurt again and, they have to rely on either TBD or Garcia to kind of finish the season. But, it's definitely, especially playing a team like Bama, like you need to win the battle up front. You have to. Like those guys, like most of those guys are going to the NFL. They might be a late round draft pick, but I mean, they're still going to be in the league.
Well, here's the thing. Here's where I kind of lean more towards what Vish said, that it's De'Aaron King or bust per se, is because he can mask some of the inefficiencies if we do have any, or deficiencies that we may possibly have on the line. He can mask some of those. He's proven that he did it last year. Even though if the line is bad, and they're going to struggle more. But I think that he can mask some of those deficiencies, especially if he's healthy and he's running around, using his legs to create plays. I think he can mask some of those. However, if you put in TVD and Jake Garcia, I don't know if they can mask those deficiencies as well as he could. So that's where I think is going to be the biggest difference there.
The ball, De'Aaron King, if you can throw the ball, you can mask deficiencies of it.
Yes, but there's things that De'Aaron King does with his legs that I don't think TVD and Jake Garcia can do.
I don't think Jake Garcia. I think Jake Garcia is a little bit more athletic than we're giving him.
No, I agree. I think so too, but I just don't think he's ready and he's as polished right now, a runner or being able to use his legs like De'Aaron King. He's a better passer. I mean, he's the best passer I think out of all of them. At the end of the day, but I just think that there's certain things, certain intangibles that De'Aaron King has that the other two don't have right now. Not to say that they can't have it. I definitely think Jake Garcia has more potential than TVD. I still like TVD right now because he's got the grasp of the offense and so on and so forth. So I'm giving him the edge right now. But look, I'm excited about all three of them. I think all three of them can be serviceable, but I kind of agree with Vish. I think if De'Aaron King, God forbid anything happens to him, I think we automatically lose at least 3 or 4 games. So, with that being said, we're going to close it out because we definitely went longer than I thought we would. This was awesome, though, man. I really loved it. I forgot to mention earlier, make sure you follow us on Twitter at 6 Rings Canes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Like us. We'll definitely be back on next Wednesday to preview the game, Alabama and Miami. But we're also going to talk some college football together. We're just going to go college football roundtable and talk all the big games that are going on next weekend as well. Not only Miami, Alabama, but we definitely will preview that game first. Hopefully, it's going to be a big weekend. Big weekend. So we'll talk about all that. But again, thank you all, Vish, Paul, Danny, Jock, always a pleasure, man. I'm glad that we were able to all get together and do this. Hopefully next weekend we can do it again. Let's talk about it. Well, thanks for joining us on the 6 Rings Canes show. Y'all have a good night. Go Canes.
Go Canes.